All right, welcome to episode 4 of the podcast. If you're just tuning in, I mentioned this last episode. If you have any pointers or any podcast names that you would like, just any ideas that would help. I'm thinking about naming this podcast. It's still going to be under my YouTube channel, but I'm thinking about naming it something and turning this into a podcast. If you're new here, check out my TikTok, my Instagram, and obviously you're watching this on YouTube. It's all either under JD Azulay or Jonathan David. You can search me up either way, and I'll be there. Today, we're going to be talking about anxiety. Last episode, we talked about worrying. It's very similar. I say there's a difference between worrying and anxiety. So I guess this could be a part 2, but there is a difference. Worrying is more specific. So you either worry about money, the food, you're going to eat, clothes on your back, your health. Maybe you worry about something else totally different, but it's very specific. And if you want to hear more about worrying, I made a podcast or last episode. I talk about worrying and how to kind of overcome that and what you should do when you worry and why worrying is bad for you, just like anxiety. It's gonna be very similar episode. So worrying is more specific. Like I said, finances, all that jazz. Anxiety is more broad. It's like anxiety is like almost outside the body. Like you just have anxiety. Like you could literally have anxiety doing anything. You do worry when you have anxiety, so they are similar. But anxiety is something that people actually really deal with. It's something that I'd say I dealt with at one point in my life. And actually, this episode's gonna be a little different. We're going to be actually talking about, a little encouraging episode. I'm going to name a few Bible verses, and we're going to talk about the Bible verses a little bit and the situation. But, so the first verse is Psalm 94:19. When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought joy to my soul. So in Psalm, David, I'm not sure exactly how long he was in the wilderness for. I probably should know that, but I don't. But he was running for a long time. I know it was a long time. He was in the wilderness running for a long time, and you can imagine the anxiety that he had on a day-to-day basis for that long period of time. And so what did David do? He called upon the Lord. I mean, anxiety is a real thing, but it's never too much for God. When you have that anxiety, pray. And Philippians actually talks about what you should do when you have anxiety. It says, do not be anxious about anything. Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. So when you're anxious, you guys should pray. That's one of the things that you can do to fight that anxiety is pray. Whether it's just your daily prayer or your nightly prayer. Maybe you can't sleep and you're up till 2 a.m. You can't sleep and you're worrying and you have anxiety about tomorrow or your life and you don't know what you're going to do. Pray. Actually talk to God. And there is a statistic out there that says, it's actually science says that you can't have anxiety and have gratitude at the same time. It's impossible. So when you do have anxiety, first of all, pray, but thank God for everything in your life. everything that he has done for you, everything that he's provided for you. Give thanks to him. Because if that is true, you can't be thankful and have anxiety at the same time. So here's a couple other verses. This is a very popular verse. 1 Peter 5-7. Casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Similar to what I just said. He wants you to lay all your anxieties down on him because he cares for you. I'm sure the disciples, Peter, he had anxiety. I'm sure they all did at one point. When they were with Jesus and even after Jesus, to the point where they got crucified for him. But when you cast all your anxieties on him and you have a soft, thankful heart, that is a cure for anxiety. You don't need pills. If you take medication, that's perfectly fine, but I challenge you to search after Jesus, search after God, pray to him. He's the best medication. He's the best medicine ever. He's the best medicine to ever exist. So next verse is, I talked about this verse last episode, but Matthew 6:27. And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? Like, being anxious and worrying it's just, there's no good that comes from that. I know some of us, especially, I know the feeling. You can't help being anxious. You can't help having anxiety. But one thing that does help it, like I said, is being in prayer and being thankful for him. One thing that I do is, as I mentioned this the first episode, is every Wednesday I just throw on some worship music and I just sit there and I worship Jesus. No matter what I'm going through, no matter what anxieties I have built up in my life or what I'm worrying about, I do it. And it really cleans my mind. It cleanses my mind, cleanses my soul. And that really helps me with the anxiety that I deal with. And I believe that it will help you if you deal with anxiety. Some people don't even deal with it. Some people naturally have that, it is what it is mindset. And even though most people do struggle with anxiety and worrying, 60% of Americans do. Some people don't. And maybe this message isn't for you, but I do challenge you to still be in prayer and still worship him, even when, you don't feel like it. That's a big thing. Isaiah 35:4. Say to those who have an anxious heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, with the recompense, I don't even know what that word is, of God. He will come and save you. Another thing I do when I worry and I have anxiety, I look at the bigger picture, like the way bigger picture, that life is short. Life is so short compared to where we are going to be in eternity. It blows my mind. My mind can't even comprehend it. That we'll be in God's presence for eternity. So when you look at it that way, it shrinkens all the daily problems that we deal with to like basically nothing. Like when you have that heavenly perspective instead of this worldly perspective, you almost like are just thankful. And for me, sometimes, most of the time, it does take it away. Because I love seeing those videos about end times. I love seeing those videos about, facts about heaven. I know you've seen those videos. But those actually like encourage me. They fill me with joy, because knowing that one day that I will be in heaven with in the presence of our Father forever, forever, where there will be no anxiety, no pain, no sorrow, nothing. Just being in his presence forever. Romans 8, I think it's Romans 8:18. It says, the pain you are experiencing now can't even compare to the joy that's coming. And that also can apply to our life. The anxieties you have right now can't even compare to what God has for you in your life. But even if you look at it as at a bigger perspective, the pain that we experience on this earth doesn't even compare to the joy and the peace that we will have when we're in heaven. The Bible also says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard what God has planned for those who love him. Like, can you imagine that? Nothing, no amount of pleasure that we have on this earth right now is gonna be close to what we will experience in heaven. Like, that just blows my mind. A few other verses. It's 1 Corinthians 7:32. I want you to be free from anxieties. God doesn't want you to have anxiety. He cares for you. Just like it says in Peter, he cares for you. He wants you to be filled with joy and peace. Anxiety actually robs us from our joy and peace. But I talked about this last episode. We have to seek him first. Seeking him, praying is an example of seeking him first. When you feel anxiety, you're actually, the first thing you go to is God. That's an example of seeking him first. When we pray to him, we're actually putting him first in our life, because we don't run to other things when we feel anxiety. We don't run to our flesh or the worldly desires, or we don't even not that this is bad. Like, I actually encourage this, but run to a therapist. Like, we don't run to a therapist first when we feel anxiety. We pray about it. And sometimes God speaks to us and go see the therapist. Sometimes we need the therapist. Sometimes we need that physical, understanding from another person. But I'm telling you, when you seek God first, he takes care of you. He takes care of you because he cares for you. Another verse we'll go with is my favorite verse in the Bible. Literally my favorite verse. I want to get this tatted. Romans 8:39 8:38 verse 39. It says, and I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today, nor our worries about tomorrow. Not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. Just soak that in real quick. Nothing can separate us from God's love. No amount of anxiety can separate us from God's love. He is there for you. He cares for you. Whenever you are feeling that anxiety, turn to him, because he wants to radiate his love for you. He wants to fill you with that joy that you long for, because essentially you long for that anxiety feeling to go away. My favorite verse in the Bible, literally my favorite. I mean, you read it and it's just like it breathes life into your soul. I can just feel the presence of God when I read that. Another verse is Proverbs 12:25. An anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up. I seen a video on TikTok a couple days ago. She was talking about whenever you feel down, whenever you have anxiety, you are anxious. Do something else for somebody. Being anxious is I don't want this to sound bad or come out the wrong way, but it's really all about me. It's really selfish. It's all about how I'm feeling. And I know anxiety is a real thing, and people do deal with it, and it's real. But I challenge you to do something good for a week, just for a week, or even just start by the whole day. Just doing something good for somebody. Like when you have that anxiety, you do something good for somebody. Because Proverbs, what I just read, it says, "But a kind word cheers them up." Even if it's just giving somebody else a compliment when you're dealing with it, because that person that you give the compliment to, they could be having anxiety too. But it says a kind word cheers them up. An anxious heart weighs a man down. Anxiety can weigh you down. Like, doesn't matter who you are. If you have anxiety, it weighs you down. It takes a toll on you. Your mental health, your body, even your relationship with God. It takes a huge toll on you. So I challenge you, whenever you feel anxious, to do something good for somebody else. Spread God's love for somebody else. Because I truly believe that there's peace in that. There's joy that comes with, doing something else for somebody. Because anxiety is so it's so me. Like, it's about how I feel, and that when you take your mind off of me and how I'm feeling, and you do something good for somebody else, it conquers that anxiety. So yeah, there's an episode on anxiety. If you haven't listened to the last episode, or even the first two, go check them out. I talked about worrying and what Jesus actually says about worrying in the last episode. So if you're dealing with anxiety, if you're dealing with worrying, if you're vulnerable enough, explain your situation in the comment section, and I'll pray for you. I'll like the comment, and I'll even reply to it and say, I'm praying for you, and I prayed for you, that you get through it. Cast all your anxieties on Him, because He cares for you. And I pray for you. I pray that you get past this anxiety, and I pray that you seek God first in whatever you do. And thank you for watching, and come back for episode 5 next week.